Part-time, full-time employees, the advantages and disadvantages. They go in all the syllabuses, but I'm going to be following the 2027 latest one from IGCSE Cambridge. It fits in different places, but they're putting it in 2.2.1 and they put it in with this slightly new one, but really easy one. Although I think they've got it in the reverse order. If you have a look on my screen, you can see it. I'm going to start with the advantages and disadvantages. Now, I think the best way is to understand the issues of advantages and disadvantages, and all students know about it, because I'm willing to bet in your school there'll be mainly full-time teachers, but there will be a couple of part-time teachers as well. And you've probably got some opinions on that, which is fantastic. You're evaluating whether you think it's a good thing or a bad thing. So let's dive into the example. Right. So in this school, they previously had me as a teacher, as a business studies teacher, and I left, they cheered, and they've swapped it with two part-time teachers. We've got Miss Smith, who works on Monday to halfway through Wednesday, up until Wednesday lunchtime. And then the second half of the week, they've got Mr. Jones, who's Wednesday afternoon till Friday. So they are part-time workers. They work 50% of the time each, and therefore they would get 50% of the pay. It's called pro rata, but you don't need that technical term. But yeah, if I got, let's say, 20,000 a year for being full-time, they do 50% time, they get 10,000 each, which adds up to the same amount of money. Now, we're going to look at the benefits, but in all of the exams, what you want to be really careful for, whenever they say benefits, advantages, limitations, you need to look out for the little trick they put in. To who? Are they just saying generally the benefits of part-time workers, or are they putting a stakeholder, the benefits to the worker, the benefits to the business? So keep an eye out for that top exam tip whenever it is. We're going to break them down. As ever, this list isn't exhaustive, but I'm hoping that you get from this an understanding, and therefore you can think on your feet and really develop your answers when it comes to the questions. So if we think about the benefits, let's look at the example for Mrs. Smith, who works on Monday till halfway through Wednesday. Well, the benefits to Miss Smith, she's got flexible working hours that suits her family needs. That means she can perhaps on Thursday and Friday, she doesn't work, she can go go-karting or look after her young child or whatever. It gives her that flexibility. You could also argue it's less stressful. She doesn't have such a long working week. She only works from Monday till halfway through Wednesday. Be careful in all of that. Yes, you get the marks, but do think, hang on a minute, but she's only getting half of the money here, 10,000 a year, so that could be pretty stressful. And she might have to top that up. She might have to work in a nightclub on a Friday night to get her extra salary. So be careful when saying all of those less stressful, full stop. Now, think about the customer. The customer receives a greater variety of skills. What do we mean by that? Well, if you're in that class being taught business studies, you might have Mrs. Smith, who's an expert at doing like worksheets and explaining with PowerPoints, but you have Mr. Jones, who's an expert at getting you up and out of your seats. And you've got both of those things now, so it gives you a good balance of those lessons. You've got a greater variety of skills. You'll have experienced it maybe. You'll also have less gaps in service. Let's say Miss Smith is ill on a Monday. Well, we know Mr. Jones is sitting at home, so the school can just phone up and Mr. Jones can come straight in. He's not the cover teacher. He knows where you're up to. He knows your names. He can get on with things. So that's an advantage for you as a customer. It's also an advantage to the business. If we jump down, you've got greater flexibility in scheduling. They don't have the stress of when Miss Smith is ill, they can just get him in. So that works there as well. We've also got a greater access of skilled workers. Again, good for the business in the same way. That you're going to have, if you've got twice the employees, you're going to have some who can also, maybe Miss Smith can also teach geography and Mr. Jones can also teach a bit of history. Well, that really helps with your timetabling of it, so benefits the business. Be careful with it costs less. That's the number one. All children want to say, hey, part-time's great because it costs less. Well, be careful because remember, we had me on 100%, 20,000 a year. These two get 10,000 each. So if you replace it in the way like I've done here, it adds up to the same. Be careful of that, therefore. You're not entirely wrong if you say that, though, but you have to explain yourself because you've probably got, maybe Mr. Smith and Mr. Jones don't get fringe benefits, so you can maybe get some savings there. But again, I feel always be careful with that one. When we go on to the limitations then, same way of doing it then. So the limitations to the part-time worker, well, it's lower. She only gets 10,000 a year instead of 20,000, fairly obvious. They may have fewer promotions. Well, let's say Miss Smith doesn't really want to be part-time, it's the only job available, and she desperately wants to go up to be head of department. Are you going to let someone who's only in on Monday to Wednesday be head of department? It's unlikely. That could demotivate Hertzberg, Maslow would say that's demotivate. So bring that in there, could demotivate. She might feel pretty insecure if she's only there Monday to Wednesday. She could lose out. Hang on, the first person we need to make redundancies, she's the quickest one to get out. So she could feel not very secure in the job. We've also got to the customer. You may not like it. This is where you use your own experience. You might feel that Mr. Jones, he's only there on Wednesday to Friday. He doesn't really know what he's doing because he's not doing the job all of the time. He also works in a nightclub or whatever, and therefore he's not very experienced, and you don't like having to be taught by Mr. Jones. It can be inconsistent. It can be inconvenient for you that, you know what, you want to speak to Mrs. Smith when they've set you your homework. You've all had it, and it's Thursday. I want to speak to her, but they're not there. They're not as engaged with you. So, again, real experience. Feel that, and you can put some disadvantages. To the business, well, you've got higher training costs, because you're going to have to do your induction training now and recruiting 2 members of staff for both Mrs. Smith and Mr. Jones. That can be more expensive and a problem. Communication and coordination, really difficult. Okay, we want a full staff meeting. What day do you put the staff meeting on to get both of them? Well, Wednesday morning in this case, but if you've got more staff like this, then we've got a problem. It can be really difficult to coordinate. What time on Wednesday? Sorry, I said Wednesday morning, but that wouldn't work because Wednesday morning, Mr. Jones isn't there. So absolutely, there's the sort of problems that come with part-time workers. Moving on to this new section that's come into the different ways of flexible working. Really simple come in, but good idea because the world has moved this way. We're a lot more picky. We've got work-life balance in the world, and we have workers looking for greater flexibility. So in this example, I've moved out of school and I've gone to a typical office job where I've got Gabrielle in my silly story. Gabrielle's great at his job, but he really loves surfing and he really wants to be going surfing. But the best time to surf is during the day when the waves are less crowded and the tides are good and the waves are good or whatever. So he's at work, he's dreaming of surfing. But he says this to his boss. He says, look, you know, I love the job, but I really want to prioritize surfing. And the boss doesn't want to leave him. He's got a way. How can we make it flexible? How can we keep him happy, Gabrielle, and keep him in the job? 2 options that our syllabus wants to talk about, fairly obvious. Home working. We all know what that is after COVID. Well, you can get Gabrielle and say, all right, I'm going to let you work from home. You can just sit on the computer, do it all through Zoom, and therefore, whenever you've got a 10-minute break, if he lives on the beach, you can nip out surfing. Much more flexible. There's one very common way that appeared through COVID with Zoom and so forth. The other one is flexible working hours. They say, well, the boss says, well, actually, I only need you to work 6 hours a day. You don't need to be in the normal office hours anymore. You choose them, just as long as you're there 6 hours a day. Gabrielle says, that's great then. Well, I'm going to surf all through the day, and then I'm going to arrive in work at, say, 6 o'clock at night, and I'm going to work late into the evening, and that will allow me to do both things, the surfing during the day and the work. The exam board, the syllabus currently doesn't say anything about advantages and disadvantages, but I think if you've understood those, if they ask it, you can come up with them off the cuff. What are some of the problems of him working on Zoom or being in an office when no one else is there? Lots of things to think about. That's it. Hope it helps. As ever, likes and any comments, questions, put them in the link below, the comments below, and I will try and help as much as I can.